And if you'd like me to.
Sure, why not? Maybe a little formal, but
The Southborough Select Board shall hold a public hearing Tuesday, June 17th, 2025 at 6:30 PM in the hearing room of the Southborough Townhouse, 17 Common Street, Southborough, Mass. To consider proposed revisions to the transfer station rules and regulations for fiscal year 26. Interested citizens may attend and provide their comments. Online participation is also permitted. Can be found using the virtual meeting page on the town website, www.southboroughtown.com/674/virtual meetings.
all right, thanks. Bill?
Thank you. We did follow the Dennington rule in posting this, so
Okay.
just so everyone's aware. While the packet in front of you is a little thick, it really is short. Believe it or not, it's a one-page memo summarizing the changes to the regulations and the proposed fee structure. Attachment A is the current regulations. Attachment B are the proposed regulations. And attachment C gets into the three options that are presented for the fee change. So just to quickly summarize, the new regulations, while they look pretty different from the old regulations, have no substantive changes to them. Okay. They're just presented in a more legible and clearer way so that if you're looking for information, you can find it easily. The old regulations were kind of like all over the map, and it was difficult to find things. So that was the goal. I think we got it. There are three minor changes I wanted to point out. We did include definitions for residential waste and commercial waste, which we did not have. We include reference that we now accept cash in our office for the stickers. And lastly, the fees. So that section is subject to change depending on how the board wants to proceed. So with that, I will just jump to the third attachment, which is the three options we laid out for the proposed fee structure. The guidance we've been given in the past from the select board is to maintain a deficit, or an operating deficit of about $100,000. So $100,000 of the burden of the operation is carried on the general tax base, while the rest balances in terms of sticker sales, which is our only source of revenue, versus the operating costs, which includes employee salaries, disposal of waste, and those sorts of things. So we presented three options. The first option, let me just say, first, our current rates are for non-seniors, the first permit is $285. The second and more permits are $20 a piece. The seniors' first permit is $40, and second plus permits are $10 a piece. So the three options we have, option one is the one that we recommend, has an increase of $10 to the non-senior permits. So it'd be $295 for the year. And then for second permits and more would be $25 additional dollars. And for the seniors, it'd be $50 for the first permit and $25 for the second plus permits. That gives us an operating deficit of about $98,000. Option two, again, we're increasing the non-seniors first permit by $10. The second and more permits are going up by $5 to $25. And for the seniors, the first permit is again going up by $10 to $50. And the second plus permits are only going up by $5 at $15. Lastly, the third column that we analyze, that deficit is $103,000. Then the third option that we looked at is for the non-seniors first permit to go up by $5 to $290. The second plus permits going up by $5 to $25 for the non-seniors. For the seniors, the first permit going up by $5 to $45, and the second plus going up by $5 to $15. that gives us an operating deficit of 115,000. So again, I recommend option one. That's fairly closest to what the target was. If the board wants to choose the others, we'll revise the regulations accordingly.
Okay. So I've reviewed the the materials that you put together, and I thank you for revising in a way that makes sense. Of the feed structures, I think between option one and option two are the two that make the most sense to me, and I kind of in borderline indifferent to them, but with maybe a preference for option one, but I'll see what the rest of the board thinks. Marguerite?
I support going with option one just because the cost of everything is creeping up, and I'm sure it is for the DPW too.
Kathy?
So Bill, you did a great job putting this together, and I love the index. That is a really good, we need indexes, right? So good job on this. And I think it's worthwhile to remind people the reason that we don't cover the whole cost of the transfer station is because the town uses the transfer station. Now, do we know how much the town uses? No, this is arbitrary, but that's where that 100,000 comes from. There was something on the blog today that seemed to indicate that had kind of been forgotten. So that's why a piece of it is borne by the general tax levy and the rest of it is by the users. So I actually, two is my favorite because I did think, if you look at going from 285 to 295, that's 3.5% increase. The Social Security COLA increase for 2025 was 2.5. Our budget increase for fiscal year 26 is over 7%. So 3.5% makes sense to me. So I like the 295. The only one that I questioned was jumping the senior second sticker from 10 to 25. I thought 15 was more reasonable. I can live with 1 and 2. I mean, you're talking a deficit of 98 versus 103. So both are right there as far as 100 goes. So I can live with wherever everybody else wants to go. But I would, if I had my preference, I'd vote for 2 instead of 1.
Tim?
I'm with Kathy. I was leaning at option 2, slightly more approachable for the senior side than the $15 increase.
Al?
I think I can go with option 2.
Okay. Seems like there's a majority for option 2.
Sure.
I don't know if there's anything else to talk about with these.
Well, the motion would be to adopt the regulations with the modification to go with the fees outlined in option 2.
I have one more thing to ask.
Sure.
I just was looking at this and just wondering, we have non-senior and senior. Were we writing this? Would it make any sense to do resident and senior resident?
Well, the regulations require that they be residents.
Okay.
Andrew, one more thing before we do the motion vote.
Yep.
For those that are concerned about the ability to do this, this is also a program that people can apply for based on their income. They'd fill out a form, right? But you can actually get the sticker for no cost if you qualify. So that program's still in place.
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct. Is there any public comment on the transfer station rules? Okay.
We've got a lot of seniors here. No, are they
Um,
happy with their rates? It's quite a discount.
So I move that we close the public hearing.
Second.
Sorry, the questions were there. Can I still just make one?
Sure.
Sarah Reynolds, 104 Main Street. Just talking, throwing out a couple different things in terms of the whole idea of charging seniors for the transfer station. Back when there was no charge for the stickers. But, once you turn 65, granted, we're not, it's not a big amount of money to me. I think there's people, and I know that the town has made adjustments for those who kind of consider it a hardship, or they don't really want to, they could use that money for something else. So we used to have a free policy. Now it has morphed into $40, $50 a sticker, whatever it's gonna be. I think that one of the things that should be considered is the senior population doesn't really draw too much on the town taxes. They're also the ones who use, probably disposal wise, they're 2 or 3, Stop and Shop plastic bags. They're using, not very much of the weight that's going into the hopper, so to speak. I think that if we need to look at money, derived from the transfer station, one of the things you might want to take a look at is people who are using the transfer station to dump their waste that is not coming from jobs that are here in town. And I understand that's not easy to do. I'm not trying to put anything on the guys who work there in terms of policing. But I just think that it should be thought out. Do we really want to add, even though it's like a 10% increase for the seniors, what is it saying to our senior population? Because they're still all supporting the schools, which they have been done, even though it's been 30 years since they've had kids in school. That's the state law. I understand all that, okay? But my thing is, do we really want to continue that for the minuscule amount of money that it's going to?
Okay, thank you. Any other comment?
Andrew, one more comment as
Yep.
far as the transfer station, I think is one thing we get a lot of compliments on as far as the way it's run. So thank you, Bill, for that. But 2/3 of the people in town are buying stickers. So it is highly, highly used. Right?
Okay,
So we're almost 2,500 people.
so I had a motion to close the public hearing. You're just checking the mic? Okay,
Second,
all those in favor? I move that the board approve the transfer station rules and regulations for fiscal year 2025 and adopting
26.
option
26.
option 2 FY 26 and adopting option 2 for the sticker fees. All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
On a side note, I just wanted to point out that our Wheelabrator agreement expires in June of 2027, and we are working with a group of towns to negotiate the next contract. So it's at the very beginning. I know John Butler has offered some assistance, and I hope we take him up on it, but that's where we're at with it.
So as a preview of coming attractions at our July 1st meeting, Bill is going to be with us. Kind of a general overview of the year ahead for DPW, Bill's priorities, et cetera. And we've also invited John to the meeting so we can directly hear from him.
Super.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
You want to come up? Yeah, yeah, yeah. And Bill, you'll stay with us if there's any issues on the consent agenda or, okay. All right, so why don't you introduce yourself? And I can
Yes.
talk a little bit about what the item is on the agenda.
Yes. Hello, my name is Jad Shaheen, the property owner of 66 Oak Hill Road. And my wife Juliana should be coming any minute, just putting the kids to bed, waiting for our nanny. Would you like me to talk about the agenda item today?
Yeah, sure. So what I understand it is a request from you for a right of way from the town for access over the town access road that currently services the Oak Hill Water Tower, right?
And the two residential properties in the back.
Yeah. Okay. So why don't you
Yep.
give your presentation and then we'll.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So just to give a quick history of the road. In 1950, the town formally prepared a plan in order to grant the right of way or conveyance to residential lots behind the water tower, which was done in June of 28
I
of
think your
19.
wife just showed up here, so.
Oh.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah. So the timeline of the access road. So this, the town of Southborough gave grant the right of way in June 28, 1955 to right now, two residential lots that are behind the water tower. This has always been an access road, but that access road, again, the residential lots were given access to pass, repass, even to construct a road. So basically, for any means necessary, they had the right from the town to do so. The town retains ownership. The road is maintained by the town. And we are requesting to relocate, two requests from the select board. One is to relocate our driveway entrance from 66 Oak Hill Road onto the access road. And secondly, preliminary approval to enable us to access the road to build a single-family home from that access road at a later date. Of course, preliminary approval because we will have to work with DPW and the building department to get final approvals, but it all starts with approval here to get access to that road. I believe there's a couple of documents that I haven't shared with you already. One is the site plan, and just to share that site plan here. And I think you all have a copy. But what we're looking to do is to, again, move our driveway from the main road over here to the access road. And you can see here from the, and you can see here from the photos, which I'm happy to pass around. These are photos from where the new proposed partial driveway would be. But it's the road itself is already, is usable for residential use. The impact is very small. And no trees that are owned by the town. Actually, we're not even taking down any trees ourselves, but there's no trees or anything that are going to be impacted, the major trees. Because that's a very important consideration for us. I'm not sure. I mean, thank you for Andrew and Marguerite for visiting the property. I think you can see that we love nature. Our property, more than other properties, still has many trees and full nature. And we intend to keep it that way. And so we will do everything in our power besides working with DPW and the building department to continue to maintain the beautiful nature of the property. There are also also included are the supporting records, as you can see over here. So just to very quickly talk about the conveyance and the granted for the purpose. So passing and repassing over said road, for constructing a road, for purpose of using a road described in a way and yeah, so essentially it's, to use it however they please, essentially, with approval from the town. So what we're really asking for is for the same conveyance, same precedent. We're not asking for anything new or different, just the same precedent that was allowed for these two residential properties. We're asking for our current property and our future single family home, which we intend on building in the back of our current property. The new single family home, we've already done an A&R that's been approved. We've already done a perk test that's passed. So the final steps are approval from the select board to get access to that road, and then approval from DPW and the building department on the final plans of the single family home. The final thing that I'll say here is these two requests will have very little impact overall. We're talking about, 2 single families to 4 single families. We're not talking about an apartment complex that's put back there with, tens of families. So it's very minimal impact on the road in terms of traffic. There's still going to be full access, and everything should operate as it is today.
Okay, one point of information that I wanted to bring to the attention of the board, and Mark, please correct me if I'm wrong, is, so we consulted with town council about the situation, and what they had advised is that our board does not tonight have the authority to just grant an easement, that would need to be approved by town meeting. So I think the question before us is therefore whether this board would recommend this or want to put it on as a warrant article or take some other course of action. So, with that, Al, want to, offer, you got any questions or comments on this?
Yeah, I got a couple of questions. You want access to the road, would that involve, removing any trees that are currently owned by the town of Southborough?
No, so for the new driveway for the existing house,
Okay.
0. For the new property, we would work with DPW to make sure we avoid that or follow whatever legal precedents there are.
All right, so if I understand this correctly, you would like to put in the new driveway and then essentially build something new on your lot at 66.
That's right. It's already A&R, so it's separated already. It's 66 Oak Hill Road, Lot 2, which I have the A&R here if you'd like to see it.
Okay, I'm a little confused because I'm looking at the GIS system and there's the lot that is on the corner of Oak Hill and then there's a lot behind that. Do you own the lot behind it?
Yeah, we own 66 Oak Hill Road and 66 Oak Hill Road, Lot 2.
Okay, so you've subdivided it into two.
That's right.
And so you would be expecting to have access to, on this road from the new lot.
That's right. Yeah, the same access that the 2 residential properties currently have on that road. That's correct.
Okay. I would very much like to be accommodating. I think what we really have here is a shared driveway. This is not a road. This is a shared driveway. And the normal process for a shared driveway is that the users of the shared driveway own a portion of the maintenance of that driveway. Because this is not a road.
It's legally a discontinued road.
Pardon?
It's legally a discontinued road.
Not if I read Mr. Cipriano's thing, and again, look, I don't want to get wrapped around the axle here. I'd like to find a way to help you do what you want to do.
Mr. Jane, you're going to continue to own
Well,
both houses?
I want to just let Al finish and then.
So, I want to think about this some more. We've got plenty of time because this is, I'd like to find a way to get to yes. But
There's some more facts that I think are relevant, which you'll hear here in a second, that will, I think, inform us. But yeah, we got time. It's a special town meeting. Next town meeting is November 3rd. So that's the first time we could put it on a warrant unless we have another one before then. But November 3rd is what the next one is that's scheduled.
yeah, this does seem to represent an interest in real property, so.
It's another family in Southborough, so I think there's a lot of positives here and very little impact. And my understanding is the road is a town-owned road, so it's an access road.
Town owns,
Yep.
owns the parcel of land you want to access.
That's right. That's
Whether
right.
it's a road is another matter. So certainly not a road by modern definitions. And, we have other instances in town where roads that don't meet the current standards don't get accepted by town, as Ms. Cook knows well. And I think this requires some more careful analysis. I'd like to find a way to get to yes.
Thank you, Al.
Tim?
My general question is there not an alternative to do like an easement through your already existing property? Well, I guess one question. Is there a deficiency with where your driveway exits today that you're trying to solve on your current property?
I can answer that. So yes, basically we have a 1.5-year-old and a 3.5-year-old that are learning how to bike.
Mhm.
We would rather have them in the other side to receive access. Currently, so basically to exit the house, go to the road, they had to pass through the grass. It's not ideal. We would love to have like an easy path
Mhm.
and kind of like have a more safe setting and environment for two toddlers that basically play outside
Yeah.
in front of the house. That's one of the main ones with the main house. And with the second one, the pre-approval, it's like we don't want to end up with two things about something you mentioned. Is an alternative? Not really, because we already have a paved way. We will need to pave and probably kind of like build somewhat a bridge because, or somewhat some kind of solution because it's on wetlands.
Mm.
So the further side is wetlands. So that will leave us with a landlocked and a very expensive
Yeah.
solution.
For the second lot, we'd basically have to destroy our existing property to get a house in the back, as opposed to a very easy access off the access road.
And
Okay.
It's like
Yeah.
wetlands, and we will
Yeah.
get into the issue that probably the department won't allow us to touch the wetlands at all.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I'd like to, hear more, but my initial thought was if there was a way you could grant yourself an easement through your property through an existing driveway, I was wondering if that was a viable alternative and if it had what the negatives were. So you answered that already.
Yeah.
So, Mark, like Andrew said, correct me if I'm wrong, it's my understanding that the A&R should never have been issued, that the planning board made a mistake. They thought that was a road, so it didn't have any frontage. So it's a A&R that should never have happened, and that's what's allowing the second lot to be created. So that's a fact. But the one that worries me the most, you've got a water tank right there, I'm sure you know. And we are in the process of negotiating with Hopkinton to allow them to get their water through the same source we do, but they've got to come through this. And part of that plan is to rebuild that tank to accommodate the additional need to store more water. So it's going to be rebuilt and it's going to be much bigger than it is right now, is at least what the current plan is. So I am concerned about approving this with that plan on the table and not fully flushed out. I believe some of the trees that you're planning on taking down, correct me if I'm wrong, for the second house is part of the shield for that tank. So would
I-
worry about that shield coming
What do you
down.
mean by shield?
Well, you got the tank, so, but I know this area well. We've all got a good friend that lives right next to you at 50 Oak Road, and I went down there today just to make sure I remembered
Yeah.
it. So it's my understanding that some of the trees that you'd want to come down for that second house would be part of the trees that shield the view to the tank so that you don't see that tank.
So just two comments to that. One is we haven't gone that far, so that's not accurate. Second is if I'm understanding you correctly, someone doesn't want to look at the water tower. I don't, so I guess I'm trying. So first of all, we have not gone through the process of looking at the trees. We have communicated where we would not take down any trees that are owned by the town, obviously without town approval and going through the right processes. We want to maintain as many trees as possible. That's in our nature. If you've seen our property, that's our house.
So today.
Yeah,
So it is
it's
very sheltered.
very, very trees everywhere as compared to most other neighbors that just have grass and take down all their trees. So we are actually want to preserve as many trees as possible. And then if someone finds it to be, if I'm hearing you correctly, and I hope if it's an eyesore to look at the water tower, I understand that could be an inconvenience. But I think the value of having another family in Southborough, is, outweighs that. And also keep in mind that we are going to keep as many trees as we can, and we're not going to touch any trees that we're not allowed to touch.
Okay, so the second house, you're going to build the second house and sell it? Is that your plan?
I would like to add on that,
Okay.
that I find very important. Right now, it was actually, we planted grass in the area that is already like flat to put a house right away. It's the area, if you walk with us in there, it's already flat. It's already the space for that. It's something we mentioned, this benefit us because we will need to move so much soil to do this. And in terms with our plan is just to keep it. We have a family, we have 2 toddlers. We're thinking in their future. And I think that's important for us. Also,
I'm not sure I'm just asking, I'm not sure that's relevant to our decision. So you
Yeah,
can do what
so
you
I-
want. It's your house and
So,
what you want.
yes, right now, our intention, we don't have any intention of leaving. We have an intention of continuing to be in Southborough and continuing to raise our kids in Southborough. Of course, who knows if I get a job or Juliana gets a job and we're required to go someplace, but there's no intention now to do anything with the property besides build a new home, move to the house in the back and rent the one in the front.
There's also another owner on the other side that also abuts this, whatever you want to call it, access road. So therefore, any decision we make on this one would probably have to apply to that one too. So that's why I think we need a little bit more time to think about this, and we've got the time to determine whether we want to put it on the warrant or not as far as getting the easement. Right?
Could you talk about the golf course?
I don't have much information about the golf course. I know the golf course is behind the residential lots at the end of the access roads behind the properties, but I don't have information on the golf course. Happy to get some information for
You're talking
you.
about the driving range golf center, not a, Okay.
I'm understanding that there are vehicles. Sorry, no mic, that there are vehicles for that golf course going up and down the road now. Who?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't know if they're allowed to, not allowed. I have no idea. Yeah, but we can find out the information.
I can answer that. I have seen a truck like come in or out at some point last year, but no, recently I haven't spent that much time in there.
okay. So since I, first came to the property and looked at it, I've talked to a bunch of knowledgeable people, and two concerns I have are, one, that I have not gotten a good explanation of why the planning board approved the ANR when there's not frontage on a public way of that back subdivided parcel. And this is a kind of a strange item on a select board agenda, because I used to be on the ZBA and we would deal with things like this kind of all the time, right? I know there was a lengthy discussion about which board this would go to, and it's come to us, but I think you have to think about the precedent that this sets for others. When I was in the ZBA, there were many times where someone would come with a request where the impact would be kind of fairly minimal, but you have to consider what other abutters think, and then even if it doesn't legally set a precedent for someone to do something similar, could you have a situation where someone nearby says, well, the board gave it to this guy, what's the reason why I wouldn't have it there? And then if you look at so there are other, on the other side of the road, there are 2 other properties where they also have, extensive, for lack of a better term, frontage on the service, right? So you think, could they do the same thing of subdivide that and then seek to build either for themselves or for, development, and to sell it, another house, and then ask the town to have access onto the service road when it's never been accepted as a public way? So I also think, having heard from town council that we don't have authority to grant the right of way to begin with, we need to somehow get on the warrant. And I think it would be strange if this board kind of sponsored a article that's just about one person's property. So I don't support granting this request right now, but I think that, if something changes in the future, so for example, the concern that Kathy's talking about is we went through a whole discussion about 2 years ago about this proposed intermunicipal agreement with Hopkinton for their water, where they would contribute money to build a new water tank at that location. And the concern there is that it would be bigger. So to allay people's concerns in the neighborhood, there were, balloon tests and studies done to show, okay, if you built it, would people be able to see it? Because for some people, they are bothered and they argue it would affect our property values if we had a large structure near us. So that's where I,
So can I just answer
Yep.
some of the, so first is there have been multiple ANRs that have happened in that area, to my understanding. So it's not just us. There have been other ANRs, I think even the residential properties in the back that have happened in the last 20 years. You know, we're not the only ones that have been granted this. And I just want to reiterate, I understand that there's other maybe access roads or non-public roads, and there's been requests for those as well, you know, or to build on those in the town. We're not trying to create a new legal precedent, just to be very transparent. We're just asking for the same conveyance and the same legal precedents that was offered to people on the road already. So I just want to be very clear with that. So that is I think could be a big difference between other roads and our road. You know, we're very happy to, again, work with the town to make sure, you know, we've said, but, you know, I'll definitely want to, you know, make sure that it's emphasized. We don't want to cut down trees. You know, we want to do everything in our power to maintain as much nature and as much greenery as we can on the property. So we will continue to do everything in our power to make that happen. In terms of the construction with Hopkinton, I know a little bit about it, and I would like to ask the board to consider whether having one car, basically, let's just call it a maximum of 3 more cars going on that road, would significantly impact the project. I feel like it wouldn't, but of course, that is something that I would ask the board to consider, because, you know, we're not talking about a lot more traffic on that road. And we can, for example, we can work with the town if there's a date that the construction is going to start that we know of. We can make sure that no changes are made between those dates. So we can definitely work with the town to make sure that the town is happy and that we're happy, and of course to make sure to the best of our ability that, you know, that the neighbors are happy as well.
well, another thing too, because I think it makes sense sounds like the board is not in favor of moving forward with this tonight, that to give you suggestions about other alternative options where you could get what you're looking for. And please correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, if you see an issue with this, but I mean, another thing that you could do is you could try to see if that service road could be accepted as a public way. And you need to bring it to town meeting through a citizen's petition or something like that. But that's another, you know, you now see like 5 different residential properties that abut it. You know, I think the idea of just granting it one more right of way to use that, it kind of gets into that territory, right, of should it be accepted as a public road? And then that definitely would make sense of, you know, complete the construction of the water tower and then consider that.
When you say others, you're talking about 60 and 62, correct?
See the current residents behind the water tower.
And that was 70 years ago, so it was
I
1955.
think I'm reading Aldo's memo. That was in 2009. So
Well, so the deeds transfer. So this isn't a one-time thing. This is, you know, a precedent by the town, and the deeds transfer for the right of way.
all right, well, is there anything further to discuss about this, or I don't know that we need to take any votes on this?
Now, I would just say, let's talk about it again. Get some more information. If I understood, and we don't know exactly where that tank is going to go, that's what I'm worried about, and the impact on these others. But now, Andrew, it really was 1955. They did the A&R in 2009 to split it into 2, but the actual original conveyance was 70 years ago for those other 2.
That was the easement given by Sarah Proctor to the town, correct? And that's how everyone else got it, thanks to this lady.
I think the one other item that I think is worth considering is that if we build the new water tank, I think it's likely that the main that's inevitably under the street is going to have to be replaced as well, going down to Oak Hill Road. I guess we're going to face that same issue because there are other people who have access rights to that road, but it's going to get torn up substantially, or at least and it does seem to me that, you know, I think the question of who, if we were to go to town meeting, what body would bring the article? You're of course free to bring your own if you get the right number of signatures. It almost seems like this ought to be brought by the planning board, given that. But-
Certainly more their area than ours, generally speaking.
But yeah, generally, yes. I mean, this, but let's see if we can get the yes somehow.
Thank you, Al. That's greatly appreciated and would mean a lot to us in the town.
I had a question for Bill, actually. I'm sure the person in charge of roads, and that is a water tank. What are your thoughts on this?
Bill, do you want to come up?
Thank you. So I just want to deal with the request that's before the board, and the request is ask permission to cross town property. That's all the board's considering. You're not here for the zoning questions or anything like that. So boil it down to the simple form. Do you want to move forward with granting access? I think that's all you have to deal with. And then the other things will take care of themselves with the appropriate boards or committees that they need to go to. So my recommendation is do what you think is right with the request that's before you. It doesn't impact me. I mean, it's already got 3 other residents on it. Okay.
Okay. So given where the discussions land, maybe, I don't see that we need to take any vote on this, but if others feel differently, please let me know.
The one other question I have is this situation replicated anywhere else in town? I can't think of any other place where there's, you know, a town driveway, but, you know, because,
I
Can't
don't,
either. I mean, this is not a private road. This is not the
right,
comparison.
but, you know,
Um,
the one I could think of, and this one is, there is an access road on Breakneck Hill Road that actually runs through private property. And, that might be I think the board ought to ask town council to take a look at this to see what the right process to follow is to grant, to follow, to give a positive outcome for the applicant.
I think that's to have a town meeting article to grant an easement. Is that correct?
Town meeting is required to grant the easement.
Or there could be, you designate this as a public way. Town meeting votes to designate, and I agree with you. I think that is more within the purview of the planning board.
This road's not going to be a public way without a lot of work on it. It's too narrow.
Yep, that's right,
It
that's
won't
right.
be a public way the way.
It
it
really
is right
doesn't,
now.
it
Yeah.
does not meet the standards of.
You need to, it's right now, it's narrow. I think really only one car can go through at a time, or if 2, it's difficult.
Yeah.
So that's right. There would be expense involved in having it accepted
Well,
as. a
I
public
mean,
way.
a typical public way is at least 50 feet across. And correct me if I'm wrong, Bill. Oh, just,
24.
right, and this does not look like 24 feet to me.
No.
So I think.
So Andrew,
Grant-
maybe have one more conversation with Jay and just
Sure.
make sure this is clear as to
I'm
what
happy
the
to,
path.
Al, I'm happy to, have a conversation with you and town council about this.
Yeah,
Okay,
And it's just 2 more things, if that's okay. One is we're not trying to change the designation. We're not trying to make it a public way. We're just trying to get the same legal precedent and conveyance that the town already gave to residents on that same road. Just want to be very clear about that. And my understanding is, and this is to be confirmed, but the abutter, I believe they did a perk test on their property and that perk test failed. So unless they figure out some other way to build a property, I don't think that lot is buildable for them. So that said, the number of available potential homes to be on the road is now even lower by one. So, because I know you were mentioning there could be different homes. I just, from my understanding, I don't think that's possible with the abutters property.
Yeah, I can add on that. So when the engineers came to do the perk test on our property, they said, hey, like, don't get too excited, don't get too happy, because you most likely are gonna fail.
Because the neighbors failed.
Because the neighbors across the street from you, it failed. That's what it says. And I was like, okay, I'll pray harder. That's what I said. So, but, I just want to know something after I leave here, like, what do we need to do next? Because when we did this, it's like a roadmap, right? It was complicated, but they told us, you have to do this, you have to do the work, you have to do that, and then talk with the wetland people, but they gave us a roadmap, right? They gave us what's next. My question before you, it's like basically what's next for us? What do you want us to prepare for the next time we meet with you or anyone else in this building?
I think that one of the concerns you've heard here is about how the whole situation with the water tower is going to turn out. And that's just simply going to take some time. I mean, one of the goals we have for the year is to finalize the intermunicipal agreement with Hopkinton that would actually get this work going, where you'd have some more detail about how big the water tower it is, where exactly it would be. So that may inform the next step. I don't know if that helps you, but
But their question was, what should they do? I think you've done everything you need to do. I don't know what else you could do. We understand what you want to do. You did a good job on this. You explained things very well tonight. So I think the ball is really in our court to clarify a couple things.
okay.
I also want to say that I share your concerns about the kids using your driveway because it cuts right out into Oak Hill and nobody slows down there at
Yeah,
all.
it's shorter than other houses. Yeah, they are more built further
Right,
back.
exactly. And you've got the house, which is really close on the road
That's right.
Yeah,
and it's
compare.
not very.
It's not like they have the long driveway. We have like,
And then just to confirm what Bill mentioned in terms of the simple request to grant access, are we saying we cannot grant access today and then the town meeting could give us access? Well,
We're
obviously, if
saying,
we,
okay, just, we want to
Yeah.
kind of wrap up this item to move.
yeah,
to the
yes,
next
just so
item,
we
but-
understand.
So even if we took a vote, we couldn't grant you an easement right now because town meeting has
So town meeting.
has the authority.
Yep.
So really the thing we're considering, I think, is what you need to get it to town meeting. You need to have a way to get it on the warrant.
Mhm.
The select board can put an article on the warrant,
Mhm.
or you can go through a citizens petition process
Mhm.
where you gather signatures to get something on the warrant.
Mhm.
So I think we're saying, no, we're not interested in putting this on the warrant for the fall town meeting and this year, right? So if there's some other way that you can think of to do that, that's a route that you could take, like the citizens petition route, or maybe there's something else we learned from after talking with town council about this further.
I'd like,
I'm willing to put it on the warrant in November if we review with town council. I think I don't see a lot of downside here for the municipality. The Commonwealth needs housing, so you're proposing to make housing.
That's right.
This has I think we just need to cross some Ts and dot some Is. But yeah, there's no question, that this would require a positive vote by town meeting, which I think under the right circumstances, you would probably.
How about this? So if you want, we'll get some more information from town council. And then if you want to bring that forward, for consideration about whether for the select board to put it on the fall town meeting warrant, we'll consider it. Then at that time, we'll just coordinate with you when we're going to discuss that.
Yeah, that's.
And I still think you've got to bring the tank in because if we need more land for that tank, you may have to take some land. So I think we've got to get that straightened out too.
Okay.
Okay, but I'm also with Al on this. I'd like to find a way to resolve it so that you can get what you need to. It's not that much town property. It's a very short distance. And to me, it's also a safety issue. Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
so I think this wraps up this item, right?
I appreciate and just to 10 more seconds, if that's okay with you, Andrew, to touch on some point Al said, we are not big developers of the town. We are just a family trying to develop our land. And I just want to say, it's like, it's a process, we understand, but it will also be helpful if you guide us through the process and you walk with us. We are a new family, relatively new family in the neighborhood, trying to do our best.
I think, actually Kathy has said something quite important here, which you should be aware of, which is that the design of the new tank has not been finalized, and it may require acquiring some additional land, which could conceivably include a portion of your lot. I don't want to try and scare you, but that is the reality. And so I think you need to bear that in mind as you proceed. And you know, I have no special knowledge about what's being proposed or designed. Do you, Bill, in terms? Okay, it's a, you know,
I
you've
have-
got, you
Okay.
have what appears to be a legal lot, so it would remain a
Yeah.
legal lot.
Well, we have good news. Our perk test passed, so
Okay.
I'll get.
Thank you, Al. Thank you,
thanks.
Tim. Thank you,
Appreciate
Kathy.
your time.
Marguerite. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Mark.
Okay,
Thank you all. Should I grab those photos back or do you guys feel free to keep?
why don't you take them?
Thank you. See all the trees behind the property. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Bill.
So the next item on the agenda is Chair's Report, and I just have two quick ones. First, some information from our last tricentennial committee meeting. We're starting to get some dates on the calendar for the key events. I think we've already talked about this, but Vanessa, please correct me if I'm wrong, that we are looking to accommodate the Jewish holiday in October 2027. We are looking to have Heritage Day in 2027 held on Sunday, October 10th, rather than the customary Monday. And we talked about the pros and cons that I think the select board already talked about. I just want to confirm this. And then for the parade, we had a group come at our last meeting, Jamie Falcone, with a group that does, what is the word for this? A muster. That's right, a muster. It's like an antique fire demonstration, and they want to do it on July 17th. So July 17th, 2027. So I know you may think these dates are more than 2 years in advance, but I wanted to spread the word that, you know, because there's been some discussion. What's the right date to have kind of the key event of the tricentennial celebration? That's the date we're targeting. So if there's any huge objection to those, start letting us know soon and we'll take it up later, but that's where things stand. And then finally, at our last meeting, I think we penciled in November 3rd, 2025 as the date for a fall special town meeting. We've now verified that that date works for town clerk, town council, and town moderator. So based on that, we put on the warrant, opening the warrant for November 3. And then if we decide to do that, we'll tell all the boards, departments, and committees about that date. So if they have ideas for articles, to let us know reasonably in advance of November 3rd. And that's all I got for chairs reports. Are there any members reports? Doesn't look like there's any. Mark?
The only item I just wanted to mention is that there is an employee appreciation breakfast tomorrow morning at the senior center from 7:30 to 9:30. And so if the board is available, I know a number of you are, to be able to stop by, come down, spend a few minutes with the employees. It's always nice to try to do that in the spring. We do our volunteer breakfast in the fall, employee in the spring. So 7:30, 9:30, anytime that you're able to come down in the morning would be great.
Okay. For the consent agenda, I'd like to take off the open session meeting minutes from July 11, because I know I haven't had a chance to look at them yet. And then also, we'll just move to the next meeting, the awarding of the contract for the animal control services, because that the information about that just got circulated later. And,
So we're taking that off completely, right?
yep, so we'll take off A, June 11, and D. So does anyone hold B, C, or E?
I want to hold A for June 3rd,
Okay,
B for St. Mark's, C for the revolving fund.
all right.
He's okay.
Okay, so I move that the board approve. Does anyone else have anyone want to hold E? I move that the board approve consent agenda item E. All those in favor? Okay, Kathy, you have some edits to the June 3rd minutes?
Yeah, just minor as usual. She does a great job, so. Totally picky. Okay, so on line 104, it's at the name, so I believe Whitcoff is spelled Wittcoff. Okay, all right, so you agree? That's how you spell your name? Well, Jane was the one that last time. Jane, we got yours right in this one. Okay, then next one is 158, and Mr. Dingleton moved to reappoint. So the word TO is missing. That's it. Good job as always.
Any other edits? I move that the board approve the June 3, 2025 open session meeting minutes as amended. All those in favor? Okay, B,
So B is the acceptance of a $100,000 donation from St. Mark's School. I just wanted to publicly thank them. Andrew Pfaff and I been meeting with them this year, and they've got a whole new regime over there now. They've got a new headmaster, a new CFO. So we've met them. They are certainly off to the races. We've had good conversations about things that both sides can do for the other. They do a lot more for us than this, but this is actually a check. This was used to buy one of the police cars that we bought this year. Remember, we had two on the agenda or on the warrant. So this is one of them. And then the 18 is going to be used for anything that is in the general budget.
thank you. So I move that the board approve consent agenda item B. All those in favor? And Kathy, you held the golf
Yeah.
capital
Okay,
improvement, golf revolving fund?
so Mark, I'm looking to you for this one. Okay, so I'm fine with what we need to do here at the 25K. But where are we with the irrigation project?
Bill Cundiff has left, so
Yes.
it would be easier.
So-
Bill, is he? We grab him, Lily.
Sorry, Bill.
Hi.
Hey, so we're talking about the golf course. So my first question was, where are we with the irrigation project?
Sure. We had contracted with Par Corp and they delineated wetlands and they prepared a plan set. I'm in the process of preparing a notice of intent to go to the Conservation Commission, trying to hit the 17th, no, I'm sorry, the 21st for the submittal date to get on next month's agenda.
So we're a year behind, right? We're going to be a year behind.
I'm not
I'm just
sure-
worried about the cost.
I'm not sure what the original timeline was.
Because remember, we funded 50K or so to do the design, whatever, and then CPA money funded the rest of it. And now if it's another year, I'm just hoping that there's enough money that's been, I know they've got a contingency built into, so maybe that will cover it. But we know what inflation does to our cost, right? So I just want to make sure that we don't delay this any more than we have to.
No, I agree. I am moving as fast as I can.
Okay. All right. So that one was yours. The rest of them are, I'm looking at you, Mr. Purple.
Yes.
Okay, so the contract with the management company is up 12/31/26. We've got 2 one-year options that we could exercise if we wanted to.
Yes.
I would like to start talking about this sooner than later, as far as what to do here. This is one place that I think we could generate some revenue. We have to change some things as far as a revolving fund, but we've got $5 million invested in this golf course, right? The revenue last year that we received from the contract was about 112,000. We don't think that's, I mean, the slope has been like this. I think it's going to flatten out. I don't think it can grow like it has grown, but it's still a lot of money. So I would like to find a way that we change the terms of the revolving fund so that we can start pulling out, make up the number, 50,000 something every year to apply toward the general fund. That's a 1% return on investment with the 5 million bucks. But it just, I know we're going to always have something to be done, right? That's our job. But I think this contract, the next one, we can look at and maybe improve the terms a little bit. If you look at the finances of the actual management company, which I have. So I just want to get this on our agenda. 12/31/26 is still a year and a half away, but let's start figuring out what the process is going to be to negotiate this contract.
Sure.
And not just assume we're going to exercise 2 one-year extensions.
Correct.
Okay?
So I think that also if you want to change how the revolving fund is used, that's simply a bylaw change.
It is.
Yes.
So maybe we put that on the list for the fall. That's kind of a simple one, I
We
think.
could move it to the goals worksheet later down on the agenda.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're going to take that goal, Andrew? Because I
Well,
think that,
that's not on the, we'll deal with.
all
it
right.
after.
Okay. So anyway, I just think that we may be leaving some money on the table at this point, starting to do very well. If you look at the financials, you can't really tell how the management company is doing because of the way they do things. They've got money left over profit, but they also have a big management fee that's buried in there themselves. I can't tell how much of that's truly management fee versus anything else, so we'll have to get more information there. $50,000 doesn't sound like a lot, but it's an annuity. It's year after year after year, so it pays for something, right? Okay, and then second, and I'm probably stealing your thunder here. We do have to do something about the window, especially in this one house. It gets broken over and over and over and over. I don't know whether, I know tonight we're only going to do the one thing. We're not talking about number 2, number 3. Excuse me, we're going to do the third one. So we got to do something to stop this.
Okay,
All right.
I move that the board approve consent agenda item C. All those in favor? And I think that's it for the consent agenda, right?
Yep.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda is a continuation of something we talked about at the last meeting, the consideration of the revised charge for the Neary Building Committee. At our last meeting, which was 2 weeks ago, we discussed a draft new committee charge that would do a couple of things. First would be to collect facts and information about some of the different options that were discussed in the debate about the vote in May, including moving the 5th grade to Trotter and making Finn a 4th-grade school and others. And also second, to get public feedback on what were the key reasons for why people took the positions they did and what were other options that people might potentially coalesce around. The idea that for a next phase of this, we know what people don't want. Is there an idea of what people do want? And I had drafted a proposed charge and Tim had drafted a proposed charge, and we decided to have us come up and sit together and see if we could put together some consensus proposal, which we have, and we'll get there. We also decided at that time not to act for the time being on the committee appointments. Everyone on the NBC, their current appointments expire June 30th. And did not seem to be unanimous, but there seemed to be a consensus that we should bring on some new faces, but also keep some current members. And one thing which is new, this happened last week, is that the school committee had a discussion, and I was wrong in saying they formally voted to support it, but there was a discussion and they all agreed on a series of action items to give for the district to accomplish over the summer. And then I put that in the packet and circulated that. So that's the little spreadsheet here of things they're looking to get done over the summer, including, most importantly, evaluating the safety conditions of Neary and Finn, doing a structural analysis of Neary. You know, these are things that are kind of the more short-term things that inform, you know, what do you do to keep up the condition of Neary in the next couple of years? So, I first want to turn it over to Tim to talk about the new draft charge, which has been circulated to everyone. And has everyone have a copy of it?
Mhm.
Okay, Tim?
Yeah, so the charge kind of was a combination of a number of different thoughts, but essentially where we landed between Andrew and I in talking with the superintendent was the idea that we have a lot of this knowledge, and Jason Malinowski is, we have a lot of this knowledge that exists today. And 80% of this could get filled in pretty quickly by a couple of the members that were on the NBC. A lot of our ex officios would already be part of whatever new charter we would have too. So if we modified the kind of NBC charge into a new version and had the matrix drive it to be a true apples to apples comparison, it would be a good starting point to look at the options in that light. So really everything's driven here to be an apples to apples comparison throughout this. The options are all on the table. Any sort of state reimbursements would be a consideration as well in one of the columns. So if we could apply for an MSBA grant for a roof or for windows as one of the things, that should hopefully be identified in at what rate within this comparison chart between the options A through G. So, not sure if I have anything else or miss anything in that right now, Andrew.
Yep, so this is really the same content that was in your draft charge that we talked about at the last meeting, right?
Yeah, very much like most, I would say the majority of this is what was in that.
And this seeks to, this would be a tight charge, so the timeline for this committee is through the end of August, unless it would be extended.
Yep, through the end of August, so only 2 months. We'd bring in some new members, some new faces. There's about 2 that we could appoint, if I believe I have the numbers correct. Three that we would appoint. So we'd have 3 new faces that could join this. And then we could obviously choose, or the committees and boards could choose who they send back as another member. So if they want to send the same person or not, they could choose to switch it up.
And those 4 are the school committee, select board advisory committee, and the capital.
Exactly. So we'd have hopefully a good new number of people to look at this and populate and really look at all the options as an apples to apples consideration and see what other ones we didn't bring that we looked at before that need an update from a 2-year starting point to where we landed at the special town meeting. And some of them, I don't think really were looked at in depth. So a chance to really look at them and bring anything else forward.
And one thing that we kind of took out from the version that we discussed from the last time is the survey component of it. To instead, we had in mind having a representative of the select board work with the representative of the school committee to formulate a simple draft survey. Then we could then approve it from the board before it goes out, and then have that work with maybe MTC or Jay Montillo on conducting, sending out the survey to get feedback from people about of the different options they've heard, what are the ones they like, what are the ones they have the most concerns about, et cetera.
Yeah, as well as if there's any conditions within any of the options, that would be a stop point altogether. So if
Yep.
there's, if it's a financial stop, if it's a site stop, if it's a grade configuration, to try to start to get a general consensus from the public on which we could maybe get 2/3 support for to bring back in a future date, or not bring back, that's the wrong words, to bring forward in a future date.
And then for the select board representative, we could also get, if the new charge is something the board makes sense, that we could designate its new select board representative. And I think you would,
Tonight.
you would be a good person for that from all the work you've done on the charge. But so basically, the things to, talk about here are charge, survey, and appointments. I think you only get to the appointments if you first, if we agree on the charge. So Marguerite, we'll open up for discussion here. Marguerite, what are your thoughts?
I think it all looks great. It looks like a lot of good work, and I support Tim being the select board representative.
Kathy?
So can we break this into two parts? I think the
Absolutely.
survey is pretty easy. So let's get the survey figured out tonight for sure, how we do it. This runs in parallel. And then my comment on this is this is a lot of work to be done, and by the time you get everybody appointed July 15th, let's call it, 6 weeks. I don't think it's possible, but I'm going to vote for it. But given how long it took us to put together the work that the Neary Building Committee did, I just don't, I mean, you got what, 7 choices, 7 permutations times 16. So I'd suggest that, Tim, what you may want to do is sit down before the committee's fully formed, sit down with Jason Malinowski and Greg Martineau and start filling out this matrix as much as you can from the information that we already have. And we do have a lot. We know what the demolition cost of Neary is. You've got some things you can do. You can start on the operational cost, but boy, this is a daunting task, to say the least, in the middle of the summer. So whoever gets appointed has got to be willing to understand there's going to be a lot of work to be done in the next 6 weeks. They've got to have the time and the ability to do it. But I said, let's get the survey set, and then let's hopefully vote on this and start appointing to the extent we can tonight, so we can get this thing off to the races.
And I agree. I think the idea is we want to compile as much of this information as possible. I do think there's some of this information the committee is going to say, we don't know. And you need to spend money to figure out that factor figure. And for now, not spending any more money, just using the existing resources we have to, do the two things. One is the comparison matrix, and then the other is the survey, which we would do on our own with the school committee.
So again, I'm going to support this, but I don't see where you're going to get the money to do everything. We got about $15,000 left over. The finance subcommittee is going to meet Friday and finish off paying bills from the 950. So I think there should be about 15 left over when we're done, and that's it. So keep that in mind too, as far as how you do this. I don't know how you fund all this stuff. I don't know where the school committee is going to get the money to fund the base repair option they're going to look at over the summer with Beta, but whatever, maybe they've got that in their overall budget. So anyway, but I'm going to support this, and I roll up your sleeves, right?
Tim, do you have anything to add, or?
I think I said everything so far, so.
So a couple of items. Obviously, I'm not crazy about leaving the 4-grade Neary in there, because as I believe the town has spoken on that matter, but I'm Johnny one note. I share Kathy's concern that I think the time frame is unrealistic. If you can make that work. The one other sort of substantive matter that I would recommend is that we only have a school committee member and a select board member, that we not have a member of either advisory or capital improvement and planning. We need to broaden the representation as much as possible. We don't want to have 4 out of 7 being the usual suspects. And I think that this is really, the people we appoint, I think, need to be broadly representative of what showed up at town meeting and the ballot. And I think that there ought to be a strong bias for people with experience in construction and building. I think that is, I think that's what we're talking about, and we need people who know what they're talking about when it comes to hammers and nails and girders and concrete. That's, I think, the most important part, but I think we don't need the usual suspects. We need new faces, and those new faces need to be a clear majority. They don't all have to agree with me, but I think if we have four of the usual suspects, then that is not going to do the credibility of this effort any favors. I think leaving, the 4-grade Nereon is pouring some gasoline on the fire, but I know I'm going to get outvoted on this.
So Al, to your point, if Tim is our select board representative and we just have you take up the at-large appointments fresh, they have to, hopefully July 1st, then you've got there the possibility of, as you say, a majority of people that didn't. I mean, there seemed to be a consensus of some of us. I don't think you were entirely in this camp of a mix of some of the existing people and some new people. So I support, the version that we've gotten.
I won't support this as written. I'm sorry. I frankly, I would offer that there should only be one member who's on the existing NBC as part of this. We need new faces and we need a fresh perspective. If this board wants to, if this is, meet the new boss, same as the old boss, that's one,
So-
that's up to the board.
So Al, would you, as opposed to this selection, what would you stipulate as the 7 members?
Well, I'd take the advisory committee member off. I think actually the advisory committee, we need the advisory committee at this point to do their duty. They're a legislative body. They are not an executive body.
Okay, so who
And so,
would you put on just everybody at large except for one select board and one school committee?
yes.
Okay,
And, I think we need the advisory committee to be an independent review of this effort. And,
I totally agree with that statement, by the way. When we did the Public Safety Committee, the Advisory Committee absolutely did a process in parallel. 3 of us interviewed everybody in town to make sure we won't cannibalize them, but we did still have a rep that was on the committee that totally reported back to us. That was his job, to bring it back to us. We had the committee in over and over again. So I agree the Advisory Committee does need to operate differently this time, but I've never seen a committee like this that didn't have an advisory rep on it. Doesn't mean it has to be the same one. And by the way, I think school committee is going to change their rep too. So that's 2 out of 4 that are already changing, if that makes any difference. I think it's not my call, but that's my understanding.
and what about CIPC? Nobody from CIPC?
this is not by and large a financial activity. This is a construction activity. We had, I'm sorry, I'm going to offend people here for a couple of minutes, but we had, the NBC was finance heavy. And the NBC spent just shy of $1 million on a project that went down in flames. And
Okay, so
so-
tell me what you want going forward.
what I want going forward is a school committee member,
Yep.
a select board member,
Yep.
and then the other 5 members would be appointed at large.
5 at large. Okay.
All right, I mean, I support the version that we've got in the packet here, but after a lot of time and work on it, but I understand the reasons, that you've articulated. Okay. Now, I think we're at the point where we might open it up to public comment, which would really, hopefully.
Let's talk
Okay,
about this.
before-
Can I ask
survey-
one-
Oh,
the
but I wanna
survey.
just, before we do that.
Yep.
Anything else people want to talk about here?
I do.
Yep.
If it's an at-large person who also is on advisory, is that acceptable? Or if it's an at-large person who's also happens to be on CIPC, is that acceptable? So. in
Yeah,
other words,
look, there is a small subset of, I'm going to use words that are going to annoy people who are, I'm going to call them the governing clique. And we need new people who have not necessarily been part of the process, who can come in and who we need fresh faces on this. I think that is critically important to rebuild trust with the public.
We've already begun with one, so. Well, that if you support Mr. Fling being the representative, yes. I don't know, if you support Mr. Fling being the representative, that. Okay. Okay.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
my other question for that, if I can just jump in here with that, there's gonna be a lot of data on the matrix, and Tim, I'll ask you what you think about that. There'll be a lot of data on the matrix that someone who's already experienced with that data can produce, and someone who isn't experienced, for instance, the cost to tear down Neary. Tim, are you happy that you could get from 6 other members at large or 5 other members at large and the school committee member access to that data, or would you need somebody who was on the prior committee to get it?
That's what I'm worried about. I think I need somebody that has some historical knowledge. That's why I thought that a 2-month charge could be reasonable for this data filling in, because I'm under the impression from what I've been told.
Yep.
80% or 70 to 80% of this exists from
Agree.
research done.
Yep.
The matter of looking at when that data was done, annotate what date that was. Was it, increased for inflation over 2 years? Was it done a couple of years ago and was an option that we cast aside? But it's simply looking at that and seeing where it came from and try to get the best information that we already did research on and put it onto a table. And I think if we lose advisory or capital improvement and planning committee member, we might be at a disadvantage for the 2 months. I would say at the end of the 2 months, we could talk about this again and decide a good path forward and decide what we filled in. But I think the best chance to get a good apples to apples, which is the goal of this in my mind, in 2 months is not to completely lose those couple historic members that would have a lot of knowledge.
I agree. All
I
right.
think 80 is probably a little bit more, but I mean, you got, I just went through it, you got quite a bit of it, but some of these weren't considered with the NBC, so you're going to start from scratch as far as the cost of those.
Yeah.
And so I agree with what you said, maybe for a slightly different reason. You're going to need some experience to be carried forward here to know what's been done, what's not been done, and not have to try to figure it out from scratch.
Okay, are we ready to? Now, for public comment, we have already had probably over 2 hours of public comment the last 2 meetings. And here, really just the narrow thing that we're talking about is just the charge for this committee. So, and the draft is on the packet, and there were copies back in there. So we're really interested here in comment that's on the committee, the composition of the committee. Does anyone have comment about the draft charge? Okay, and I'd like to just to try to manage this of keeping totally the public comment to about 15 minutes or so here, given just the volume of comment we've had before. So Patty?
Patty Fiore, 10 Winter Street. Could you explain to me, under each configuration shall be evaluated against the following criteria, number 3, and how that is going to be implemented in regard to the apples to apples that you're discussing?
Yep.
Yep.
I don't see how really that would be, you'd be able to get that information for anything other than the existing.
I can.
So here's my concern.
Well,
Here's my concern.
Yep.
You're going to come back with A, B, C, D, E, F. No, sorry, A, B, C, D, E. And say, here's our estimated costs for these renovations, additions, yada, yada. You will get 0 funding from the state.
Not true. Tim referred to that a minute ago.
This is why I'm
Not
asking you,
true.
how does
Not true.
number 3 apply to the way you're going to look at it? Are you going to say, if you want to do a renovation, you would get a 36% reimbursement moving forward?
Tim?
The way that I saw this fitting into here for this particular column as we look at these is the today timeframe. So could we apply for a roof replacement grant? I believe we can do that for a number of these. So calling attention to it in that line, I don't know what I don't know yet about how we can estimate that.
It can be estimated. We estimated the reimbursement from the very get-go. We got better and better, but we've got a lot of information now. We know what our base reimbursement rate is. It applies to repairs and to renovation and to new construction. So you absolutely can come up with an estimated reimbursement for almost every one of these.
So that's what I'm trying to understand. So when you come back and you say, I'm just throwing out numbers and scenarios here. But when you say, full ADA current code compliant renovation of Neary, option E, we're estimating that cost to be $70 million. Currently, we would get no reimbursement because we only have one option in front of the MSBA. So are you going to present it to the community as it's going to be $70 million and you get zero versus new 4-grade school at Neary, where you're going to get a brand new school for $70 million after $35 million from the state? Or are you going to say it's $70 million and we should be qualifying for 36% reimbursement from the state?
It's the second part of that, the qualifying for. I see a couple things today. Number one, we could solve our problems in the near future and we could self-fund any of these options here. And then, or we could wait a number of years, enter back into MSBA, try to get back into the program, and then we'd have the inflation escalation to have to consider at that point. So there could be options here, maybe fin expansion, you know, if there's something there, could be appealing today because it would cost a lot less money than waiting for the program to go back in. But to your point, I think the matrix needs to be factual. If there is a 36% reimbursement rate, we know what that nominal number would be, and we'd have that listed in there. So that way, when you look at this, you get the information that you're looking for to keep it in front of you. But the goal would be to get that information as apples to apples, that you can know if we'd reapply, it would be this, and then what the escalation rate could be. There's a lot of information here, so it's kind of hard to fully see it yet on how it could be digestible when we're done.
Again, I don't think you're really giving an apples to apples comparison because you are still dangling a $35 million reimbursement from the state for one and only one option that is listed here. The only way I can see this being fairly moved forward is to start from zero and say, there is nothing that is going to happen with the MSBA grant that we currently have been under consideration. There is no determination that will be made before the 120 days. We are not going to seek an extension. And therefore, every one of these options that we're going to look at, we're going to look at from ground zero and determine it based on a timeline that probably starts in a year or 2 years.
Patty, are you saying take F off the table?
No,
We agreed we weren't gonna go
actually,
back
I'm
to
not.
this tonight.
Yeah, so
Marguerite, I'm actually not saying take any of them off the table. What I'm saying is put them on an even table and start over. This committee, the Neary Building Committee, was formed with the premise of coming up with the best option for our grade configuration in our school. And then to take that option and present it to the community to get it supported. That committee failed at its objective. We need to start over.
all right.
And I don't think that any of these should be taken off the table, but I don't think that you can dangle $35 million in front of one of those options and call it apples to apples.
Okay, understood. Mary,
No means no.
thank you.
There was a vote twice.
Hi, Mary Tinty, 2 General Henry Knox Road. I just have a quick clarification question here, and if I'm missing something or being redundant, it's a quick answer. But take, for example, Part D, which says in the comparison matrix, you could explore expanding Finn or renovating it to serve 4 grades pre-K to 3. Lovely option. Given the fact that so here's my question. Within all of this, there are some short-term things that we might have to consider about the current Neary school. And so I'm just wondering, if you were to move forward with an exploration of something like D, you still have to figure out like where kids are going to go during that construction project, especially if Neary is not remedied enough in the short term to keep kids there. So I'm wondering if that's already considered in this matrix and I'm just not seeing it, or that's just a clarification point, because as we think about the bigger picture 5 years down the line, it may well be that to keep Neary online for that long, it requires some investment, especially if we need to have kids there while you're readying another facility for them. So is that clear?
Mary, can I just ask for clarification? of that?
Yeah.
Are you saying that in addition, we stop at 16, but 17 should be the cost of housing the students while a change is being made in the configuration of schools?
I'm wondering if I missed that in 1 through 16. Is that implicit in one of those options already, or is that also something that needs to be considered?
So it would have to be considered. So
Okay.
right now, the school committee is looking at what they need to do to Neary to keep students in it.
Right.
That could theoretically be a number more years of minimal investment in a building's fine. You know, maybe we do some roof repairs, it's a couple $100,000, it's fixed for a period of time. We don't know that yet, or waiting for
Right.
that to come back. So
Right.
once that comes back and we know the answer, we will then be able to know what the rest of them might need. But in the meantime, let's just look at what would it cost to make Finn fit? Does it fit today? Does it need more room? If we need more room, what are the steps? Do we have to go to the state legislator, get them to
Right.
sign off on the land use to use the other field? That's really what this is about.
That's great. I just also think that within that, if let's say D is what, this is totally hypothetical, but if let's say D is what kind of rises to the top, within that, you have to add on the time for Neary in order to keep kids housed somewhere so they can continue being educated for the whole process.
And the cost of putting the Finn student at some places like on the one that was.
Oh, exactly, with
would
Finn
have to
too.
be factored in. That's a cost that you're going to have to
That's
pick up. So
another-
we know what the modules cost. So
That's another line in the Excel spreadsheet of what it would cost to put students somewhere else. while
Okay,
the change-
so I just,
but you're right, Mary, it does need to be considered for sure. It's a cost.
All right, Mr. Carmelak?
Hi, Gene Carmelak, 29 Wildwood Drive. I have a couple of questions. Number one, what has the school department or the school committee addressed the issue of the Northborough preschool program? Have they addressed that? Have they informed us of what the status of that program is and what the implications are for space at Finn?
The answer is, Jean, I don't think so. I believe the plan for next year is that they'll be back for next year. I don't think they're moving. The whole decision to move them was premised on the fact that Finn was not going to be a school. So obviously they needed to go back to do it in Northborough. There was a consideration of moving all of pre-K to Algonquin, Southborough too. I don't know if that's still be, so we're really not the group to answer that. The school committee is going to have to answer that. But the answer is, I don't think that they're moving next year. I think that there is a plan though, regardless to move back to Northborough, but that's just what I think.
I mean, I think
Well,
that's.
we can get the answer for you, but
Yeah,
that's,
I think that's an important issue because if you look at what has been done so far, the committee itself reported that 5th grade can go to Trotter.
Mhm.
If that's the case, then we're dealing with 1 grade. And if the Northborough preschool program exits Finn, then a second grade group can go into Finn. So I think there's some issues that have an impact that the public should be aware of. I mean, the Northborough preschool program issue came up, I believe it was in February at a meeting that the committee had, We've had no discussion of that publicly since then. And I think that that's a critical piece of information that has an impact on whether or not this town spends $100 million on a building.
So
Yeah.
I agree with you that that information is important. We did talk about it several times, not just February, but February may have been the last time we talked about it, as far as what to do with the Northborough pre-K. So, but remember, I know you think that one grade could, if Northborough pre-K were to move, I know you believe you could move a whole grade into Finn. And I know you genuinely believe that. Obviously, the school committee didn't agree. That's why we had modules being added for this program. So, you know, somebody's right, somebody's wrong. They've got to figure that out as far as whether you really could fit a whole grade into Finn without adding on to Finn. But there was a reason they were adding on the modulars to Finn to accommodate that whole grade being moved there.
Okay. Another comment on this is, why are we spending $100 million on a school when Northborough has the capacity to entertain their own preschool program?
But it's understood.
Okay, I mean, why is Southborough being put in this position when it's really a district-wide issue?
So what we're talking about here is just really a committee to gather research to look into some of the questions that you're talking.
But if these issues are addressed, we don't even need a committee.
Okay. There's two other hands raised in the online audience. We'll take them, and then I think we'll move to a vote. So is that?
You have a hand up?
Yep, I see. So Howard, and I don't know if this is Howard Rose or another Howard.
It is Howard Rose.
Hi, Howard. How are you?
Hi, thank you for letting me on. Howard Rose, 2 Bantry Road, member of advisory, but speaking as a citizen. 2 comments. One, I am concerned that we're only allotting 2 months to this committee. I think it's going to take longer than that. And I'll leave that as is. I like to see where that goes. What I'm really concerned about is the process. What I learned from town meeting and being there, I think the committee did a fantastic job in what they did. I think they were shackled by the program of the MSBA, and we didn't have the option to look at these other options properly of expanding Finn, et cetera, because they weren't in the purview of what we were assigned to the thing. We'd have to start over. I would strongly recommend, and I think I'm repeating someone else's, but we need to look at these equally without the money. And then once we come with ideas, then reapply with our ideas in hand. And that way we're not shackled by this program. We need to come up with our own ideas, figure out how this works, what's best for the town, and then apply for the money, not chase the money first.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Kristen?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Just really quick, I just echo that I agree with the sentiment that that Howard and others, Kristen Laval, 12 Southwood Drive. I agree with the sentiment that Howard and others have expressed tonight in terms of starting on an even playing field. My quick question is this: could we make, I think it's, the decision to the point, by looking at this one option, the committee was forced to make the decision to close Finn, which I think was one of the things that also caused concern. So could, for people who may live on that side of town in terms of, closing the one school and the impact on that side of town and property values, could we designate at least one of the citizens at large to be a member of the surrounding neighborhood? So they can bring, information back to their neighbors and others?
My personal feeling is I don't support putting that in as a defined criteria in the charge, but I mean, certainly that makes sense of something we should consider when we do the at-large appointments, because I know one of the, I live on the south side of town. I totally understand people's concerns about whether Finn is a new 4th grade school or Finn is closed for a different school. So I completely get that. And I think, for example, like the home value implication criteria there, proximity to a school change is something that addresses that point. And Tim, I don't know if you have anything else on that.
No, I mean, I'm just gonna rely on, town departments that help fill in different avenues here, so, that's just, we need experts to help us fill this in, and anybody in town that has information or opinions about it, apply. We're gonna appoint at-large members. We have a lot of columns to fill in.
Okay, I think we're maybe, are we ready to vote on this?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, this is gonna be the last comment.
Question.
Yep.
Okay, so Nancy Carmelak, 29 Wildwood Drive. So why do you only have this short amount of time to work on it?
You can go ahead.
I mean, I've been led to believe we have most of this information already available. So it's just starting to fill it into the matrix. If we need more time, we go for an extension and get more time. But if we have an abbreviated time, we have a consultant still with a little bit of money left over. Let's use the momentum that we've already gained and just start to fill it in. I mean, I think any aggressive deadline, if we don't quite hit it all the way and we need more time, we need more time. It's not an issue of time. It's just, let's try to take it and strike while the iron's hot.
So you're trying to get it for the town meeting?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, it's just, we have.
So you really have time. You
We have-
don't, you
we have
don't,
time.
you don't have to be done by the end of August.
Yeah, we have time, and if we're not completely there, then we at least have an idea of what ideas are rising up, and then we can decide, do we need more money to study those ideas further? Do we just pause all this and re-enter the MSBA in a couple of years? I mean, we don't know what we don't know.
Right.
It's a matter of filling it out and giving ourselves breathing room.
Okay, thanks. Great.
Okay. I'd like to move, I'm gonna make a motion. I move that the board approve the charge for the pre-K to 8 school building committee.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? All those opposed? Okay. So we've approved the new charge. Then the next item to address,
The survey,
yeah, so the survey, is the board on board, is the select board on board of the idea of having, we have a representative work with a representative of the school committee and the MTC and Jay Montillo to put together a draft survey. I think it makes sense for the, probably not going to be a lot of questions on the survey, but for the survey to come back to the select board, might even be like a combined meeting of the select board and the school committee, so that people get some input on what the questions are before they go out, and also the manner in which it goes out. Does that
Yes.
make sense?
Mhm.
Okay. Is there anyone who would like to be the point person for the survey?
I can do it.
there you go.
Okay.
Or
Yep.
someone else? want to?
Actually,
Hold on a second.
I have substantial experience in survey research.
Al, I defer to you.
And I think, you need to be very careful about how one words the questions, so that you're not setting the table for for a predetermined set of answers. So,
Well, that's part of the reason why I had in mind that we would, this isn't just each board selects a member and then off it goes and we have no idea, that it's going to come back to the board.
So we have a chance to approve the questions before they go out to make sure that
Yeah.
it really is unbiased and that we agree
Yeah.
that it's unbiased, whatever. So it seems to me like the idea would be to have that come back simultaneously with the completed matrix, Tim, so that you use all that to determine what the next step is, because it will inform you maybe as to which way you want to go,
Okay.
right?
So who wants to do the survey?
So Al has suggested that he be the select board rep. The school committee will designate someone, and then we will ask Matt Probst to basically work with both of them to put it together, because he's got the expertise on how to do this.
And we will okay the survey before.
Yeah, we'll get to see the questions. So that's, the motion should include that it comes back to select board for approval of the questions.
Okay. So it sounds like Marguerite and Al, you both want to do it?
Oh, Al can do it. I'll defer.
They can both do it.
Well, the reason to have not both do it is, remember,
Okay, so fine.
Yeah.
Al can do it.
Okay.
But
School
we
committee can do it.
We can edit it.
Yep.
We can.
So
edit it.
Al,
Yep.
you will, is everyone on board with Al?
Mhm.
Basically, I think the intent here is, did you support it? Did you not support it? why of the different options that you heard? What were things you thought you'd be most interested in hearing more about? What were things that not really interested in? You know, the level of people's concern about the Neary. Should we do nothing at Neary because of
Okay, Andrew, they'll put the questions
but
together.
before we have the representative go off, send off our representative to start to draft the questions, this is the basic idea of the gist of the survey. Does this make sense?
What about just giving these 7 options?
Because it's just way too much information. We're
is.
talking about a short attention span survey, like 5 questions, 6
But I
questions.
think we're dealing with
But
past as opposed to how do we move forward?
I don't know, I'm open to suggestions, but I just want to give some thought of what I was thinking.
And maybe also find out if you went to town, if you didn't go to town meeting, why not? If you didn't vote, why not? I don't see why you wouldn't ask that. But Matt Probst will be very good about putting this together. This is what he does. As far as truly trying to get us information that really is useful to understand why the vote failed. Is it solely cost? Is it location?
Is this what it's for, or are we gonna ask a survey about, do you want 3 schools instead?
No. This is
Just looking back at what what failed? Okay. All right. That was not what I had in mind, but
Okay, so,
So
I-
the question, I guess, is the survey to try and glean an understanding of why the vote failed? Or
I'm so,
alternately, is the purpose to try and understand people's preferences for a solution?
I think a little combination. of
Those are
both.
two very separate things.
I think they're very separate.
Okay,
You can do both, but they're two very separate things.
I think we should look forward.
hold
Not-
on just one moment. So we've started to, how about this? Do you have a comment about who should be our representative for the survey, or, because that's really all we're addressing right now. Yeah,
We're talking about the focus.
Yeah. which it's going to come back to this board to be finalized anyway, but
we're not trying to do the questions tonight. We're trying to
Yep.
figure who our rep is.
so
going
let's
to
just
be.
have one quick comment on this and then
Sure.
I think we're good.
Howard Anderson, One Meadow Lane.
Yep.
I've been on all the school building committees except for this one.
Mhm.
And we did have failures.
Mhm.
So this is not a precedent. But I was at the town meeting. Most of us were at the town meeting. No one wanted to shutter Finn. Nobody apparently wanted to have a 5th grade at Trotter. So in my opinion, just my opinion, as an electrical engineer, and I've been in construction for years, we should be concentrating on getting Neary a safe building and start doing the repairs that should have been done a long time ago. Neary was a new school when I moved here in 1975. It hasn't been touched since then, except for minor things. It needs to be fixed.
And I know that, the school committee just had a meeting about that last.
Yep.
So that all that's addressed, just, in the flow of this, the thing we're talking about right now is just designating Mr. Hamilton to be our representative. I really doubt that any of the further comment is really about that particular thing. So I just want to keep the flow of this moving since it's
Okay,
the 3rd meeting
I'll
about.
be very concise because
Yep.
I'm an engineer.
Yep.
Al, take the town meeting, take out all the reasons why people didn't like it and put that in the survey and ask to give a percentage of why you didn't like it.
Okay, I move that the board appoint Mr. Hamilton as our representative to work to formulate the survey questions and methodology, et cetera, work with the MTC and a representative of the school committee. All those in favor?
Okay.
Okay. Lastly, I don't know whether this would be effective immediately or July 1st. I would move to make Mr. Fling, the select board's representative to the pre-K to 8 school building committee.
Second.
All those in favor? Post. Okay. And then, pardon me? Well, first we were so for the at-large appointment, to be clear, I want to start to take that up on July 1st, and we'll publicize something for people to volunteer for that. I've heard people who sound like they're interested, but no one's filled out a volunteer form that.
They'll go through the normal application process that anybody for a
Yeah.
committee, so they'll fill out the form. They're back
Yeah.
in.
Okay, but we're gonna take this up on July 1st, okay? So we'll take that up on July 1st. And the only for advisory and the Southborough School Committee, I've spoken to the chairs of both of those committees, and I've asked them to vote on who they want their representative to be, to do that before June 30th, so that by our July 1st meeting, I think we also need to then vote on it, that we would be in a position to do that. For the Capital Planning Committee, I don't know what their meeting schedule is. My preference would be for Mr. Malinowski to continue on the committee as their representative. And one of the things we could do is to vote to. Yep.
Andrew,
Yep.
is this a question of the committees nominate and we approve, or do the committees approve?
I believe, I'm not entirely clear, but I think the process would be that the committees tell us who their nominees would like to be.
So in
we
other
can
words,
Then we approve.
Yeah,
and then we approve.
Yep, so nominate and approve.
yeah.
They pick who they want and then we say yes or no.
Okay. So I think that takes care of that.
For the moment.
All right. I think that, I can believe it, concludes the discussion of this item. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the review of our select board goals for fiscal year 2026. So our usual, when I say usual, it's only like 3 years old processes. We had a meeting last Wednesday where we all kind of like a brainstorming session about what are the things that we collectively want to get done for this fiscal year. And then I put together this draft of what I think are the things that we talked about. And the things that I was hoping to accomplish tonight are, one, do people agree that these are the goals that we should have? Does anyone want to add anything? And then we should just finalize who's kind of a point person for each of these items. So first off, are there goals that people would like to add to this or subtract from it? Yeah,
So,
I respectfully disagree.
Right.
Because the way my brain has worked for the last 2 months, there's the NERI thing and just everything else. And like I tried to, for a lot of our goals, we put out like a topic, but then I tried to put like a verb, like what exactly to solve the whole this is really a group thing with the
okay, fine.
school
All right,
committee
fine,
and the
fine.
select board. And so I think if I go like 7 months from now and we say, oh, let's review our goals, how are we doing? I don't know that we'll be able to say I've solved the whole problem.
Well, we probably
It's
won't.
maybe a multi-year process,
Hopkinton's been on here for 3 years, so,
but this is just resolved. We'll
Okay.
get done.
all right. Okay,
But your golf course contracts, that's one we should add, right?
Yep.
How should we phrase it?
start negotiating new golf course contract.
Okay, public works infrastructure. Al and Tim, do you have things you want to add, subtract? Okay. Okay, so for the item advanced decision making about future of 21 Highland, I would say, Kathy, are you interested in taking that on?
Yes.
Okay, the things where we didn't designate a point person. First of that, idea for a bylaw for streaming town government structure. I have in my mind an idea of how we might do that, so I'd be happy to work with that.
But remember, we decided, and Vanessa reminded me of this, that we could also check with town council's firm. and
Absolutely.
See what, they may have some model, the way it should be done, right?
Yeah.
I think Vanessa thinks that somebody thinks they do. So check with them first,
Yeah.
get their suggestion, and then if they've got something to start, either use or start with, then we could do that, which would save a lot of time. If not, we
Well, I'm happy to take that, and for all of these, they're coming back to the board for,
Yeah.
discussion by everyone before we actually.
I'd like to work on that one as well.
Okay, we can do it together. Okay, one where we didn't, two where we didn't designate a person, formulate and implement strategy for health insurance premium cost savings and consider reassess current level of CPA surcharge. Oh,
Okay, hold on. I want to do
Oh, so-
healthcare.
okay,
And you got cooked by this. That's Al for the
You're right.
CPA surcharge. So
Okay.
change that one. You get the
CPA surcharge.
I get healthcare premiums.
Okay. I'll take the CPA search.
Okay, all right.
Margaret, do you want to work with me on the health insurance? Okay.
So for the pavement management and storm workup analysis of stormwater enterprise fund, that again was, we just keep talking about it. Why don't we have a presentation about what are the numbers that would be involved and whether we actually want to do it?
Can we talk about stormwater? Since we've got a very relevant person here tonight that I'm looking at, who's not looking at me, Marcy. So I still think this one we should ask advisory to come. They've done a lot of work already. Melissa Dans has done a lot of work. Let them come to us with all the information. We don't need to start from scratch on this one. They've got a lot of stuff and with a recommendation as to what they think should be done.
I still like the idea of filling in something, this person would be like the Sherpa to just
Fine,
bring it to the.
fine.
The-
So Marguerite wants to
Are there-
work with
if you
Bill
want,
Cundiff on.
Tim and Al, do you want any of these or anything else?
No, I think my dance card's full.
Because you're also on the wastewater and I know that's
Yeah.
a big thing, which,
I've already done a lot with Andrew on the stormwater, so let me do that one.
okay.
But I'm going to.
So the one things we filled in, the streamlining town government structure, me and Al. Health insurance premiums cost savings, Kathy and Marguerite. CPA surcharge, Al, 21 Highland, Kathy. Pavement management, Marguerite, and stormwater enterprise fund, Kathy, and then start negotiating new golf course contract, Kathy.
Yes.
All right. I think-
Al, you've got the lion's share of the hard ones, I think.
Well,
You're going to reform government, you're going to deal with CPA,
That's easy.
You're going to do affordable housing and.
oh, but some of these have
And you're
gotten
gonna do
done. Some of these
wastewater.
have gotten done,
That's it.
you know, the rec, right? Al helped
Yeah.
bring that over the finish line. It's all good.
Nope.
Yeah, yep. No,
I marked through those too.
I mean, I wrote those down as just, these are like principles that I thought we were aiming for. They're not really like assign one person to, there's so many different things you do to try to achieve those, but I don't think we need to assign a point person.
Look at them.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. The last goal and the first goal are very similar. The last goal is increase efficiency of town government, and the first goal is start to work up potential bylaw for streamlining town government structure.
They're actually different. The last one is AI, using AI as much as we can, and also literally taking a process and, bill paying. So that's, so many people, more people paying along, whatever. So I still think they're different.
Okay, so
I mean,
use
maybe
AI
slightly
in the
related.
last. Okay. But they're kind of the same if you can replace, certain jobs.
Government structures, do we need all these silos that we have? Can we make things more efficient and roll up so we don't have so many committees, et cetera?
Right.
Get things done faster.
Okay, so I think, are we all set on the goals?
Yeah.
And then we'll finalize that, take off draft, and one of the ideas of putting this into like a separate document like this rather than the minutes was two things. One, I remember one time Bonnie Faniff asked me or recommended you should really have your goals, put it up on the website, have it as an easily accessible thing. And also Beth Mello had suggested this was something she was interested in, so write her an email about it. Here's the document and it can be as a reference point throughout the year. Okay, should we turn to the office hour dates? I think what we're gonna do here is, I know August 12th, I'm gonna be on vacation, but we can just still do it and I won't be the rep for that.
I'm happy to do this, but no one ever comes. So we'll keep doing it, right? The person that got the most business was Sam when he did the transfer station on Saturdays. I'm not going to go sit at the transfer station on Saturdays. I don't have time to
So
do
what
it,
we're
right?
talking about here is we do have select board office hours each month. And we publicize it. We probably maybe can. make even-
Actually, I had a constituent who called and said, in fact, we haven't been putting them up on the website and we need to get them up on the
Yeah,
website.
I think we can make sure we do a consistent job of getting it up on the website. But two of us make ourselves available for an hour for anyone can come and talk about anything they want, any questions they have. So,
Which one can't you do, August?
yeah, August.
I can't do July or August. I can do September.
So I have thought about that. I know that during the COVID era, we did that. We could even do a hybrid of that. What do people think of that?
Yeah. I mean, we could just do it. No one ever physically comes, right? Maybe that's why that people come.
Sometimes people come.
Leah and Claire
Yeah.
every time.
No.
So why don't we do it just virtually? That may,
We could do it. I'm fine with whatever the board thinks, to do it virtually or, obviously that expands the possible audience, right? The one thing I find like why maybe doing it hybrid makes sense is setting it, let's say you set aside the date, you show up and nobody comes, that at least gives you some time to, if you have some outstanding business with someone who works in town hall, you can get something done that way, I found.
okay, but hybrid means what? Where are we going to do it here? This would be, you're going to.
No, you can just, you just have a Zoom invite, okay? So you could people who, you could be there with your computer.
Okay, all right.
People, if someone zooms in, you talk to them. If someone walks in, you talk to them.
All right, so everybody's going to have to know how to do the Zoom, which is not that hard.
It's not that hard.
Okay. Everybody agree with sitting here, but with the Zoom capability?
All right. July 8th. I could do that. If anyone wants to do it with me. Okay, August 12th. That's gonna be the hard one. No one's raising their hand for August 12th.
I don't have all the information I need at my work schedule to.
So these are at
confirm.
6 o'clock.
I mean,
Seven.
I might be traveling, so I just have to make sure that I'm physically capable of doing it before I can sign up right now.
Okay. Can anyone do it with Al?
You can pencil me in, but I just have to double check.
Okay, I'm gonna pencil in TF. And September 9.
I can be one.
Okay. October 14. I can do that. Al, you want to do it with me on the 14th? Trying to mix it up a little bit, who pairs with who? Al, can you do okay. November 25, that sounds like a bad day. Why would we do that?
Where's
the Tues-
Thanksgiving?
It's the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. No, it is the Tuesday.
All right, so no one's gonna come to that one. I'll do it, I think.
All right, and Tim, you want to do that one too?
Sure.
And then finally, December 9.
With,
Okay, everyone's done it twice. I'll do it.
so Vanessa, can we just put, the select board on its webpage has all the bullets over to put it on, there's a bullet to just put office hours, right? We should be able to do that. And then put it on the main page too, when the dates come up.
But it's also been out on public, I think,
Yeah.
social media, so it does get out. There's always more we can do. We'll try to do a little bit more. Before we move to the last part of the agenda, I'd like to just take a 5-minute break because I need water.
Right.
All right. Okay, we'll take a 5-minute break.
Yep.
Okay. So the next item on the agenda is a request for an extension of the charge of the 21 Highland Future Use Committee. So I had originally put this under Chair's report because I wanted to provide whatever information I had about where the committee stood, whether we were going to get a final report by the expiration of the June 30 charge date. And I reached out to Freddie, who's the chair of the committee, and she informed me that the committee would be requesting an extension of the charge, and she's put in a letter explaining this. And Freddie is here. Freddie, would you like to speak to the reasons for what you're looking to do here?
Hi, Freddie Gillespie, Chair of the 21 Highland Future Use Committee. And I think it's pretty simple. We would like to have time to do more our public forums and outreach once the Finn School situation is established, because so much of what happens to 21 Highland is dependent on, it's an active department, recreation department location, and the plan was to move recreation over to Finn. And without that, there's a lot of uncertainty to what types of things would be best appropriate at 21 Highland. So we thought that would be beneficial to not just the committee, but to the public and to the citizens and residents who, would be able to be better informed on what they're looking for. So we're just giving recommendations to the select board. So there's no, building being built or whatever based on our input, and we can do that timely for whatever needs are for the new NERI discussions and what's happening with Finn.
So just on the point about certainty about Finn, based on the discussions we've had so far, I don't think there's any reasonable prospect of there's clarity about plans for the Finn school by December 2025. I also want to ask you a quick question about the status of the minutes for the committee, because to just get up to speed about what the committee had been doing, I looked on the town's website. The last posted minutes are from December 2024, and it looks like there were 4 meetings in 2025, but there aren't any minutes. Are there approved minutes that just haven't been posted yet, or what is the status of that?
I believe all our minutes, except for our last meeting, have been voted on, approved, and sent in. I can follow up on that. I know there's been a delay on getting some of them posted because of staff turnover in the clerk's office. I can't guarantee that, but I wasn't prepared to address that right now, but my recollection is we've been approving and sending them in.
Okay, well, that's something maybe separately we'll address with the town clerk's office, just to make sure that committees that are approving their minutes and sending them to the clerk's office, I think it's just minutes at, there's a separate email address for it, just to make sure that it gets posted. Okay, so,
And
anything
Andrew,
else you want to add?
yeah, Andrew, I'm not saying the town clerk's office hasn't done it. I'm just saying I believe that we have sent ours in. I don't want to accuse anyone of not doing their work.
Okay, so, just to open up for discussion, we go down the line, or Al, whoever wants to speak first, how about that? Al, you're making facial expressions.
I think, well, yeah, I'm sort of, we keep talking about having too many committees, and then, I guess, I don't know specifically what would be accomplished between now and the end of the year. I mean, what, that's going to clarify the future use of 21 Highland.
This is a question to me or to Freddie?
I'm sorry, is that to me? I thought it was hypothetical.
No, I think it's specific, I mean, what more are we going to learn about the future uses of 21 Highland between now and the end of the year? That, I think we're in limbo regardless.
So Freddie, I don't know if you want to speak to that point, or Kristen has her hand up too. Freddie, do you want to speak to it, or else I can just call on?
Well,
Kristen? Go ahead.
the future use of the building includes neighborhood and citizens throughout this town's input. And we weren't able to have that public forum yet. It didn't fit in after town meeting with the allowable timeline we had to get it done before the end of the charge of the committee. And I think it's a valuable thing. I think we learned from the Neary vote that citizens need to be feel engaged and involved in conversations about uses of buildings. So I think that's something we can help facilitate. Also, there are options for what types of uses the building could be used for if there was no recreation department. We know Youth and Family is leaving. We'd like to weigh in on that and have some better follow-up from the valid work we've been doing so far up to date. There's some more issues we'd like to look into.
Okay, I'll just say, I would feel more comfortable with this requested extension if we had had some kind of track record of deliverables that we had gotten in the interim that made me feel more satisfied that there was progress being made. And I know
Can I
that
say something to that, Andrew?
the interim report that we got did not really have much substance. We tried to arrange a meeting if you wanted to speak to that further. That
I
didn't-
would.
Yep.
We were scheduled to attend a select board meeting. I got a text from you saying that the meeting was not held. I think it was due to computer issues. I responded to that text. When will you want us to come in 2 weeks? And you said, no, you'll get back to me. And I never heard back until just now to come in. So we thought we were totally in line with our expectations. We delivered an interim report, and we will get you a year-end report, but we're asking for an extension. And I also told you that I had a death in my family that made my schedule unpredictable this last month.
I'm sorry to hear of that.
You knew that, so I don't need to go into it. It's, it's personal information.
Does anyone else have any questions?
I've got comments, not
Okay,
questions.
okay.
So, as you may recall, I was not for this committee to begin with. I'm still not in favor of this committee, so I don't want to extend this charge. I don't see the purpose of it at this point. I agree with you. The idea that Finn will be totally resolved by 12/31 is probably not likely, at least not more likely than not, for sure. So if that's what they're waiting for, and I always said, Finn needs to get resolved first before you even do this. So I still thought we put the cart in front of the horse as far as this goes. So I just, again, we're trying to reduce committees. We're trying to fill the vacancies we have. I just don't see the value of continuing this. They did have a year to come back. It was clear the charge was only for 6:30. We made that clear up front. So I just don't think.
Well, the
that
charge
is-
was through December 31st, and then because of
And
the
we
lateness
extended
of
it.
how it
Right.
got
That's
appointed.
right, we extended
It was reasonable that it was extended, but it was extended 6 months.
Yep.
And now we're coming up on the 6 months. Marguerite?
I think that the committee needs the clarity of knowing what will be happening with Finn, so I would suggest letting this committee expire and then reconstituting another committee for 21 Highland if we need it down the road.
I think that this is an important topic, but I think one thing we found out was, some of the affected stakeholders here, right, are Recreation Commission, because that's where rec is headquartered. Open space, there's open space next to the 21 Highland. Historical, because it's a historic building. And that kind of drove how this was one of those committees where we appointed a representative from various committees, but the work that we could do, we could also do it through some other form, right? either directly or just holding meetings and then inviting people from those committees to attend the meeting.
So I have a suggestion. I'm going to make a motion. I'm going to make a motion that we extend the 21 Highland Committee through the end of July 2025. That will give them the opportunity that they missed to come in and make a report formally to this board, and then we can decide whether we want to extend further. But if that gives them their opportunity to make their report to this board, and then we can decide whether we want to continue. So that's my motion.
Kristen Laval, you've had your hand up. I don't know if you want to speak.
Yes, thank you. Just very quickly, Kristen Laval, 12 Southwood. I sit on the Highland Street Committee as the rec member. Yeah, Andrew, it's unfortunate we couldn't get in, but in that interim report, I'm a little insulted to hear you say there's not much content. We outlined it very clearly, the areas we were digging into in preparation for a bigger report. So to kind of make that statement without us having the opportunity to speak to it is a bit of a knock. But nonetheless, we each have areas that we're diving into. We couldn't get the public forum in for multiple reasons, as Freddie stated, but also we were kind of like, well, what did we just learn from town meeting? We need options. A few years ago, there was some efforts to get rid of 21 Highland Street. Not a lot of options were explored. That didn't go well. So let's not do it wrong this time. We have the time to get our facts straight and get options down in alignment as decisions are being made about Finn and Neary. So we're not starting, late like we always seem to be. So I'm not sure I understand. I'm fine with Al's suggestion. That's totally fair. I'm just not quite sure what the downside is to continuing to do this investigation. That one is just, I don't understand why we wouldn't continue to use the time that we have available to explore a lot of the exciting options we've looked at. For example, we've found a lot of properties in other towns who have rehabbed old school buildings. So tons of interesting research and analysis. Why rush it and why end it? Thank you.
Okay, does anyone want to talk about this further? Tim, you have any thoughts here?
I have nothing substantive to add, but I would be supportive of Al's motion, so I'll second that.
Okay, so motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor of extending the charge of the 21 Highland Future Use Committee by 1 month? All those in favor? And all those opposed? Okay, so the motion failed 2-3. The next item on the agenda is opening the warrant for the November 3rd, 2025 special town meeting. We put this on the agenda because after we had finalized the November 3rd, 2025 fall town meeting date, and I talked to Mark about we should request, we should reach out to the boards and committees and departments to let them know if they had an idea for a warrant article to come forward. So Mark's suggestion, we should formally open the warrant. Do you want to speak further to that?
No, I think the one other item I was talking with Mr. Hegarty about this is, while the board did select a date, we didn't select a start time. So,
It's a Monday.
So we used to do 7, but recently we've done 6:30, which seemed to be more palatable to some. So I'd throw out 6:30 as the opening. See what everybody thinks about 6:30 versus 7. I think 6 is too early, so for people trying to get home from work.
Yeah.
I think 6 is too early.
All right, 6:30. So I think we should make a motion on this, or just we'll.
It's 6:30.
sure, I think,
Okay.
yeah.
I move that the board set 6:30 as the time of the November 3, 2025 special town meeting. All those in favor?
So can anyone remember at our goal setting meeting, we actually added something to this warrant. We said that'll be fine. It was an easy thing. What was it? It was, we know we're going to do the zoning thing for industrial park, adding number 16. But there was another one we came up with. So we should start a list before,
I don't have the list, but this is the.
it was not controversial. And of course, that meeting's not recorded. And I don't think it's, well, I didn't look at the minutes. Maybe it is in the minutes. Anyway, I just think we should start a list. Tonight, we added maybe possibly the easement for 66 Oak Hill. It was something that was, we thought was not controversial. I don't know what it was.
Well, first, should we just make a motion to, I move that we open the warrant for the November 3, 2025 special town meeting? All those in favor? And Al, I think you would prefer to move this executive session item to July 1st?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So I think that there's nothing else on the agenda. Is there a motion?
Public comment?
We do not have public comment on the second public comment. So the motion was made to Mr. Fling move to adjourn, seconded. All those in favor? Okay.